Greetings, friends of Deena Rose Ministries. If you are interested in having Deena come and speak at any of your church or organizational events, please contact us at srose@deenarose.com.
I want you guys to put one hand up. Doesn't matter if it's left or right. And I want you to just think about this story as I relate this to you before we go into prayer. I heard this story. It's about Jewish tradition, okay? You know, there are other books that were written at the time that the Bible was written, that they are not superior to the Bible, but when you read them and you study them along with the Bible, it can bring to life some of what was happening during the time that the Bible was written. And it's a powerful way to really open up your eyes to the setting, to the traditions, to the culture, and exactly what was being said to us. One of the Jewish traditions goes down about blood covenants. And during that time, people would cut a slit in their hand when they wanted to make a blood covenant with someone. It was their way of entering into a contract. They would each cut their hand and they would smear that blood together, and they became blood brothers. Now, we do not recommend that. The Bible condemns that. We don't need to do that. That is just something that those outside of the faith would do. It was just their culture. That's what they did. If you think back to when you were a kid, I think we've probably all done it. You know, you take a little needle, you poke the tip of your finger with a cousin or a friend at school, and you let your blood, you kind of mix it together, and you say, oh, we're going to be best friends forever. You know, most of us have done it. If you've done it, you need to break that curse. You need to break that covenant because you did it in innocence. God forgives. There's mercy, but it's still, you need to break that. Anyway, that was very, very important to them. And so one of the things that they said whenever Jesus came and he was crucified on the cross, and people would begin to spontaneously, even in the Old Testament before Jesus was on the cross, because the Old Testament is a shadow of those things that are to come, they would lift their hands. You know, Moses would tell them, lift your hands, clap your hands, praise. There's all kinds of ways to worship God because it was a symbol of what was coming. When Jesus was put on the cross and the nails were put in his hand, he was shedding his blood, making a covenant with us. The Jewish people understood that quite well because that was their culture. It's not necessarily ours. We've never really understood that. So sometimes when you're in a service and we're fixing to go into more worship, into a deeper worship, you just feel compelled to raise your hands. And for most of us, you know, we've worked past that. We're a little free, and so we raise our hands, and we've never understood that in the spirit, that is us signifying whenever a Jewish person would leave the company of one and they would travel, maybe it had been 6 months or a year and they kind of forgot each other or whatever. If one or the other of the covenant walked into the room, in order to remind that blood brother of the covenant, they would just raise their hand in a crowd. And the person that they had made that covenant with would raise their hand back. And they would connect eyes, and it immediately reminded them, this is my blood brother. I have a covenant with him. When Jesus walks into this place, and he has his arms spread over this sanctuary because his glory is filling this place, I believe he walks up and down these aisles, and he is ministering to us as we worship him. And whenever he outstretches that hand, inside our spirit is compelled, like we just want to raise our hand and worship, and we may not even know why. But it's because we have seen the sign of his covenant, and it is bearing witness in our spirit that this is the one whose blood covers me. We have a covenant with Jesus. So I'm going to encourage you that when we get ready to go into worship in just a few minutes, maybe you have never lifted your hands in worship before. Maybe that's just felt weird to you, felt awkward. Maybe you just couldn't quite muster the courage to do it. I'm going to encourage you to do it today because it keeps us connected to the one that we have covenant with, who has given us all the blessings, all the promises of heaven, who gives us all the protection that we need, who gives us divine healing. Everything lies in the power of that blood covenant. And I want us to think about that as we go into prayer and as we go into worship. So God, we stand before you right now. God, we stand before you with our hands raised high, and we're reminding you, hey, we have a covenant with you. God, you do not forget us. You do not forsake us. You do not leave us. And God, your covenant remains just as strong today as it did 2,000 years ago when Jesus hung on that cross. And God, we call you to your word today.